From now on, I will make you fishers of men. And you are to gather as many as possible, all kinds. I will sort them out later.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fisherman's Dwelling. Today we're here with Richard McFadden. We're going to talk about all sorts of great stuff. So Richard, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
My name, do I look that way or this way?
You can look wherever you want.
You can just take that, or you can look at that thing.
Okay. Oh, I see it. My name is Richard McFadden, and I am a student at UCA with Caleb and Graham.
Yeah. What brought you to UCA?
It's a long story because I didn't want to go
Oh,
or come. I have lived in Conway since 1972, and so it's always been here, but I've never had an interest in going to UCA. And then I had a son that had a full ride scholarship to U of A in Fayetteville, and he everything went wrong for him there. For example, he had a calculus class with 100 students taught by a graduate student from Pakistan who could hardly speak English.
dang.
So he lasted one semester. And then, because that was a four-year institution, UCA was a four-year institution, there was no way I was going to encourage him to come to UCA. So he went to BB, and he had a real live instructor and only 12 students.
Oh, wow, okay.
He is now the chief engineer for the State Park Service,
Oh, that's cool.
simply because of that change of school. So I've always been very leery, always along. Absolute term though, isn't it? I've been leery of UCA because it is a four-year institution. I had it in my mind that it was very similar to U of A.
Yeah.
I was wrong. My passion for a long time was canoe camping. What's the about?
I like camping.
Yeah.
You are welcome to come with us on Monday
Ah,
at Toadsuck, and there's going to be s'mores and cookies and hot chocolate.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later,
Okay.
or now. I mean, we can do it either way. But going back to UCA, I used to lead scouts during summer scout camp. The older scouts on what they called a 50-miler. We actually did 60 miles
Oh, wow.
and spent 2 nights on the Buffalo and 2 nights on the White River. And but it got to the point that I was becoming a liability because I was losing the use of my legs. And so in 2015, I gave it up. Now, I have to go back to 2013
okay.
because are you familiar with what a couch surfer is?
Couch surfing? Like
Yes, couch surfing.
watching TV all the time? Or?
No, that's couch potatoes.
Is couch surfing, is that like where you ride your couch like down the stairs?
I guess you could do that. That would be a one-time deal.
What's couch surfing?
Couch surfing is an organization that was started in San Francisco, and it's worldwide. And if you're going somewhere and you need a place to stay, instead of going to a motel or something like that, there's this network, and you can contact the people in that area and say, hey, I'm going to be here on this date, and could you put me up? And it may be that you'll just be on their couch.
That's cool.
So that's where it gets the name. But it's
like
international.
Kind of like an Airbnb.
Well, it's better than that because it's free.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's my experiences with it. And I'm going to tell you the most important, but I've had some really neat experiences with it, both ways, having people stay with me and staying at other people's. Anyway, I got a young lady from Taiwan contacted us and asked if she could stay with us over the weekend until the dorms opened at UCA. And we said yes. And so she arrived, and we put her up for the weekend. And then she found out that the dorms weren't going to open for another week. So she was with, and I can get somewhat emotional. She was with us for 10 days. She never knew her grandfathers. And she felt like she'd really missed out by not knowing her grandfathers. So she asked if I could be her surrogate grandfather.
Oh, that's wow. That's crazy.
really cool.
Boy, that was the best deal that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
She graduated summa cum laude
Ooh,
from
okay.
UCA. She now lives in Toronto, Canada, and she loves it up there. And she would never think of coming back here to live. She would certainly come back and has come back to visit, but she would rather be somewhere other than the United States.
Yeah.
So she, when I decided I couldn't do the canoeing much anymore, she suggested that I come to UCA. Now, I have to go back to high school.
Okay.
I graduated in a class of 265.
Okay.
I was ranked 260.
Oh, wow.
So I was way down there. And there's good reason for it, because I never did my homework.
That tends to be a problem, you know?
There's definitely causation,
Even now,
not
that's still a problem.
coincidence.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So even now, that's still a problem.
That is for me, but I've gotten around it. Anyway, she said, you only have to take one class, and then you'd have access to the Hyper Center. And so I thought about that. And then I had a friend that I've known a lot longer than I've been here at UCA that teaches at UCA. And she said, Richard, you don't have to take classes for credit. You can audit. So I've got to tell you a little story.
Okay. I love stories.
I have been here for 10 years.
Okay.
Wow.
I have taken over 300 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
I have a 4.0 GPA.
Dang.
Now that is all true. So I'm really smart, right?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
You have to see it in its context. And the context is I've only taken one class for credit, but I got an A in weightlifting.
Okay.
So you could outlift me.
I would quickly go to an F, so I'm not even going to try. My major is personal happiness.
Okay, so that's what that is.
And the reason I have this little card is because UCA has what they call a human library, and you can check out a human book for 20 minutes.
Oh, cool.
And I was one of those books. And my topic was my major is personal happiness, and I would go into that.
That's cool.
So anyway, because of Zoe, my granddaughter, and this teacher, I registered for UCA. And it has been absolutely amazing. Every semester seems like it gets to be better than the last semester. Just incredible.
Yeah.
I am the most privileged student at UCA because of my major. Now, one of the things that is really stressful is Homework.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Well, school period. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't have to do homework.
Okay. So it's stress-free school.
What is something else that's stressful at UCA?
Paying for it.
Yes. If you're over 60 and a resident of Arkansas,
Mhm.
school is free.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So you're telling me that all I have to do is wait until I'm 60 to get my bachelor's degree.
Yes, but what do you do with your bachelor's at that point?
Right, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, I've been here for 10 years. I came in as a freshman. After 10 years and 300 hours, guess what I am?
Freshman.
A freshman.
Okay.
Can't you see the freshman 15?
Yeah. That's funny.
I do need to become a sophomore, don't I, so I can get rid of this.
So wait, can you technically graduate, or is it just?
Oh, if I took classes for credit,
Okay, but yeah.
but that would destroy my happiness.
Mhm.
And I think happiness is more important than a piece of paper.
Hmm.
And so no, I have no intention of even becoming a sophomore.
Okay,
My life is too good.
that's good.
And what a way to end one's life.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just incredible. Um, let's see. Let me tell you, I mean, I've got lots of stories,
Mhm.
Okay.
but one of the privileges that I have, when I retired, I went over to the senior citizens
Mhm.
because that's where senior citizens go.
Mhm.
Problem is, it was all old people.
Okay.
And who wants to be around old people?
Yeah.
I
You
don't.
got out of there.
And but occasionally there would be students that would come in on a service project
Mhm.
from UCA.
Hmm.
And it was always wonderful to see those students come over. So now I get to do that full time.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
It's cool.
and Caleb, now Grant, you and I hopefully will get to know each other
Right.
better.
Absolutely.
Maybe Monday. But being able to meet people
Mhm.
and share experiences is just amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm. It is.
And hopefully, in return for all I am receiving, hopefully I can help others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I have a class that this semester is another amazing semester.
Hmm.
And I'm taking four classes,
Okay.
two on Tuesday, Thursdays, and two on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Nice.
And they happen to be back to back. So I arrive at 10 o'clock in the morning, go to class. From that class, I go next door to the classroom next to it, to my
Nice.
second class, and then I go to lunch where I get to meet people like Caleb.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, the other one is Tuesday, Thursday. Again, it's 9:25
Mhm.
to 12:05,
Okay.
back-to-back classes. I'm taking sociology,
Okay.
and the class is called stratification. The formal name of it is stratification, but we're focusing on poverty.
Mm.
Okay.
And so it's kind of going to be a tearjerker.
Mhm.
There is one classmate that on the first day says, I don't know if I can do this class because I'm very emotional.
Mhm.
And the teacher assured her that she'd be okay.
Mhm.
And then the teacher got emotional telling about what she was dealing with, and she was on sabbatical last semester. So all through the fall, she was working on a book that she's writing,
Mhm.
and she said she was able to handle it when she was with the homeless and interviewing, but when she started writing it up, that's when it really got
Right.
to her. There is just no reason for poverty.
Yeah.
That as this book says, poverty by America.
Mm.
You know, we are the ones that are ensuring that poverty stays here, and that is just dead wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, should I continue talking about poverty, or should we talk about something else?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a good conversation to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Now
good
I'm going to
segue
get
into it.
political.
That's
Hey,
okay.
that's okay. This podcast is for people to talk.
Okay. Can we talk about Jesus and
Yeah.
poverty?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
you're more than welcome to. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. What did Jesus think about poverty?
Well, didn't like it. Didn't like it. There's an example. I know we talked about this a little bit the other day about like him talking to the rich man, and he was like, "I've done all these good works. I've done all these good things. Can I get into the kingdom of heaven?" And he's like, "Yes, but like leave all your possessions behind." Like, and he's like,
Mhm.
"No, I can't do that. I've worked all this hard for this stuff." He's like, "Well, if you're holding on to this world, how are you gonna join my kingdom?" So, I mean, Christ doesn't like people holding up their treasures, on earth. Like the psalm says, I mean, don't store up treasures here on earth, but in the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he doesn't like poverty.
Yes, you're right. Well, can I rephrase it?
Yeah.
He doesn't like the concept of poverty,
Mhm.
but he likes those in poverty and wants to get them out of poverty. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way you do it is by others intervening,
Mhm.
coming to their aid.
Mhm.
And we don't do a good job in the United States of doing that.
Yeah.
Um, the and the rich man is not the only story.
No.
There's just all kinds of stories through the New Testament, particularly in the Gospels, about his feeling about riches versus the poor.
Yeah.
And in each case, he's saying that you need to look after your fellow man. And if you've got the means, you need to use that to help those that are impoverished.
Yeah.
And I think that is basically, I haven't, this is a full semester that we're going to be going over this. So and I haven't, did I tell you I don't read?
Really? Wait, so is that like the bookmark right there? Is that, did you just put that there to?
This is another thing.
Oh, okay.
But it relates to it.
Okay.
And maybe I can share a little bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be impoverished.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a video the other day in class of a woman living in a broken down mobile home with her children. She had a car, but she couldn't drive it because something was wrong with the wiring. She couldn't afford to have the car fixed. So she had to walk 10 miles to a job, fast food job. If a rich person was there, he would he probably wouldn't live in the mobile home. He would, he would destroy it and put up something really nice, and then drive his really nice car to somewhere else than a fast food place for a job. It's all about access, and impoverished people don't have access. Of course, she was missing teeth, and that comes with poverty. In 1991, I was living with my family in a mobile home, two-bedroom mobile home, and I have a large family. So there was a windstorm that came through, and I had put up an awning, basically, or a thing that covers the
Like a porch?
yeah,
Porch on it?
yeah. Let's use it. That would be a good.
Okay.
It would be a porch. Uh, and the wind caught it, and it was attached to the roof because I didn't think ahead. It caught that, blew it up over the roof, and it took the roof with it.
Mm.
And so anyway, we reattached the roof and then started looking for another place to live. It took about a year to find something, and we ended up building a house in Conway.
Mm.
I didn't think we would be able to make the payments for 6 months, and we would be evicted. But it didn't turn out to be that way. Like the woman, except in my case, I finally got insurance and was able to go to a dentist, and immediately I lost 5 teeth
Mm-hmm.
because it had been 11 years since I'd been to a dentist.
Dang.
Right.
So when we're talking about poverty by America, I think I can identify
Mm-hmm.
with that. As it turned out, moving to the city, I have 15 acres that is 20 minutes from here.
Mm-hmm.
When I left there, I vowed I'd never set foot on that property again. And 33 years later, I have not set foot on that property.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to go back there.
But do you still own the property?
I still own it.
Okay.
Yeah. And my kids
Mhm.
and grandkids go out there, but I don't.
Yeah.
Um, we really need to experience poverty.
Mhm.
At least look at it and realize that it's really there,
Mhm.
and they are among us. There are people that are homeless that don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Right.
And it's really bad if you're a mother with children and a single income, and that income is invariably a part-time job at best at doing fast food or something else, janitorial.
Yeah.
We just don't know how that is.
Mhm.
I don't know what your background is. She said that 1/3 of the population has experienced poverty at some point in their life.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take a drink of water.
You're good.
It's really interesting.
And I fit into that. I know what that is like. So when I took this class, it really hit home.
Mhm.
And I want to do what I can to help alleviate it. If you look at the preamble of the Constitution, it says, and in fact, I've got it on my phone if I can read, because when I don't read, I don't remember.
Oh.
And so I will let y'all read it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have that thing basically memorized.
You want to read it out loud?
So we the people, in order to form. Wait.
I'll
We
grade
the
you.
people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and secure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, support the general welfare, and
Secure
secure
the blessings of liberty.
the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperities,
Posterity.
do ordain and establish
This
this Constitution for the United States of America. We sang a song in like middle school when we were studying the Constitution, the preamble.
Yeah.
We the people, in order to form more. So it's always been stuck in my head.
I've never heard that before.
Anyways, yeah.
And you know, if we met each one of these,
Mhm.
what a different place this would be. And we would be a light to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But we've chosen not to. I was raised in a Republican environment, so consequently, I didn't think a whole lot of FDR. Um, I voted for, well, I didn't vote, I was too young. For Eisenhower. You know he's that guy that was back there, way, way, way back there. But for me, it was just the other day.
Dang.
But he was a Republican. But he was a 5-star general. And so consequently, the military is normally apolitical. And so he wasn't either Republican or Democrat, but both parties wanted him to run as their candidate because he was a hero.
Right.
And he chose the Republican Party. But he was a centrist. And we all need to think about becoming centrists again. Because it's not that way. I did vote. I couldn't vote until I was 21.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
And do you know why?
Why is that?
Because that's the way it was.
Yeah.
Oh, like so that was the
Legally.
law. Legally,
You could not vote until you were 21. But it changed to 18. And do you know why it changed to 18?
Was it not enough people?
Uh-uh.
No.
Was it so that they could, like, if you're fighting for your country at 18, you could vote for your president at 18?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Look at that. There you go.
And when did that take place?
During the Cold War? At the end of it?
No, the Cold War extended beyond that. Vietnam.
After
Okay.
Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were going to Vietnam. Now, I went over when I was in my 20s, but a lot of 18-year-olds were going to Vietnam, and but couldn't vote. And so that's why it's 18. I don't think it ought to be 18.
Oh, okay.
And the reason, again, UCA is such a wonderful resource. I took Introduction to Neurology. Neurology.
It's like how the brain works?
How the brain works. And I discovered the brain, a human brain, does not fully develop until it's 25 years.
Yeah, I've
So,
heard that.
so neither one of you are 25, right?
No, I'm 20.
Nope.
You've got a ways to go.
Yeah.
And your brain is not fully developed. That's why your insurance is more than my insurance when it comes to driving, because you're not as responsible as I am, because you don't have a mature brain.
Yeah.
Now, there are exceptions. And
Yeah.
of course, you two are naturally exceptions.
No, maybe a little bit. Not too much.
And doesn't the statistic, there's some really interesting, like, differences between the male and the female brain, like, developmental stages and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it takes longer for the male.
Yeah, I think.
I We didn't talk about this, but I think the female brain develops a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
But we catch up, don't we?
Yeah.
We
as much
mature
as we
for
can.
longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a fine wine. You have to let it age.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. But I don't drink.
Well,
Me neither,
neither one of
so-
us are 21, so neither do we.
Our brains are not aging.
Yeah. That, by the way, there's a doctor that does I don't know if he'd call it a podcast or anyway, posted on YouTube, and he's a heart specialist, and he lays it down and lets you know even a single drink is going to have an impact. Drinking in moderation is going to have an impact, and you don't think it would because you don't feel it, but every time you take alcohol into your body, it's damaging the body.
Right.
So, fortunately, I've never drank,
Oh, ever?
Like, just ever?
ever,
Wow.
and I've never smoked.
That's
Okay.
good.
And, well, I did smoke for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
It was secondhand
Oh,
Oh, okay. And
when I was in the military.
everyone smoked, though.
They had the rights, we had no rights. And so I would be in a crowded area that was just blue-gray with smoke, and I had no option but to stay in there. So that, for 3 years I smoked.
Yeah. And you said that was in Vietnam? You went to Vietnam?
Yeah. Well, it was my entire time in the Air Force.
Okay.
And when I was down at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi for almost a year, and going through training. And during our breaks, we had to stand in a certain area that was marked off, and the smoke just
It just filled the room.
well, it was outside, fortunately, but it didn't matter because we were all crowded together.
Yeah.
Right.
And so everyone pulled out their cigarettes and started smoking, and I died.
Crazy, like a smoke zone.
Yeah. So feel fortunate that you have that option of not smoking. And I just don't understand how anyone in their right mind would, with the information that's available,
Yeah.
would smoke.
Yeah.
But they do.
Even the vapes and the
Yeah.
those sort of
Especially
things.
Especially those.
There are some things that you can do, and I'm preaching to I mean, if you take care of your body now, it's going to pay dividends. I found out about a retired professor that he also had never smoked or drank, and found out that when he was 80, he had a motorcycle, and he went all the way to the Arctic Circle and back.
Oh, wow.
At 80. At 80.
Gosh.
Whoa, on a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle.
That's crazy.
And he was head of the philosophy department for a long time. There's another, well, the important thing is take care of your physical being.
Yeah.
It's the temple of God, right? So don't smoke, don't drink, don't do anything that is going to do permanent damage. Eat healthy food.
Yeah.
That's something I struggle with. Is eating, especially at the calf with everything so available.
My diet pretty much consists exclusively of skillet grilled chicken and white rice.
That's good.
Yeah.
That stuff's pretty good. Get you
That
bulking
is
with that.
okay. So it's not fried chicken.
No.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I mean, I'll put some butter on like as a fat to cook the chicken in, but it's not fried chicken. No.
Yeah. Again, it'll pay dividends if you take good care of it.
Yeah.
Take good care of this too.
Yeah.
I used to know the Scout Oath, and it talks about being physically and mentally and spiritually healthy. And so that's important.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that?
About all three of them.
How do you
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you ask such hard questions?
I love hard questions.
I hate them because I have to answer them. And I had planned to go over to Hyper before I came over here, and I was going to go swimming because that's good for you.
Yeah.
Did I do it?
No.
So I'm not an example anymore as to what to do physically.
Okay.
And as Caleb can attest, I start out real healthy by eating salad, but I finish off
Ice cream.
ice cream.
But hey, dairy's good for you.
It is, but not that type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
and I make sure I get 2 big scoops.
Mhm.
Um, but at least I start out with a salad,
Yeah.
Right.
so I'm not dead yet.
That's
Almost, but
And how old did you say you were?
81.
81. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
you've been taking that ice cream, every day. I mean, I bet if you stopped, it'd probably be worse than if you kept taking it. It's probably helping.
Thank you.
Yeah, the sugars.
Brent, do you buy that?
Oh yeah, the protein. You
Protein.
know, yeah, the dairy proteins that you're getting.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
one, and I don't know if this is going to be of interest to those on the podcast, but my wife is diabetic.
Okay.
And she was watching a YouTube thing about diabetes and what you need to do. And it said that first thing in the morning when you get up, drink 2 big glasses of water. So that's number 1. Drink water when you get up. Number 2, eat something that is protein, because that's when you really need the protein. Do you know what happens if you don't have enough protein? Where the body needs protein, so where's it going to get it?
From your muscles and
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't have much left. Weightlifting was,
Yeah.
it was all on paper, I assure you. Yeah, so you don't want to have the body taken away from your muscles, so you need to have adequate protein. And so I have a protein drink that I have started taking each morning.
Okay.
And I've only been doing this for 3 days now.
Is it working?
I don't know. It's too early to tell. I may not find out because I won't live long enough to.
Were you like when you were younger? Were you big into like weightlifting exercise? No. Okay.
No. And I wish I had have been, but no, I wasn't. But I did walk and.
Okay.
You know, do you know that back then, in order to go to school, you had to walk 5 miles through 5 feet of snow to get to school and back? I mean, it started in August and went all the way through to, and I'm lying to you.
I was like, "There's no way."
I've heard that joke before.
Yeah.
People talking about their grandparents going to school.
Yeah.
It's like they have to trek 10 miles through the mountains, 3 miles through the beaches, and then they get to school.
I will say my grandfather, he grew up as a sharecropper in Louisiana,
Yeah.
and he talks about having to miss the first several months of classes because that was like right when school started. It was crop season. It was like harvest season, and so
wow.
he would go for like the first week, and then I was just talking to him about that the other day.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, and that we were an agriculture economy 100 years ago. We're not anymore, but we were then. And so school had to adapt to agriculture. I lived in Northern California, and the peach crop came in. And so we would get, that was in September, as I recall. And so we, school adjusted around that. I'm told that in Idaho, the potato season, when that comes in, they break for potato season.
That's interesting. It
Yeah.
probably is pretty plentiful. I've heard Idaho has a lot of
Yeah.
farming.
And summer break is because that was the farming months. And so you took a break from school to do the farming. And then when that harvest came in, then you went back to school.
That's cool.
So you got a little bit of history.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Were you
pretty neat.
were you ever like a part of that? Like, did your family growing up do any agricultural?
No, my dad, okay, here's another story.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
My dad was a juvenile delinquent.
Mm.
We were ahead of the times. My
Juvenile delinquency.
my grandmother was a divorcee, and so with a son. So she was working lots of hours to just put some food on the table. she gave him, and this was back in the 20s and 30s.
Roaring
She
20s.
she gave him $5 a week. Now that doesn't seem much to you right now,
Right.
but that was huge.
Mm.
And do you know what he did that with that? He went to the pool hall. He quit school at the 10th grade. He was literally becoming a juvenile delinquent. My grandmother was very, very concerned. She had a brother living in Tempe that was reasonably well-to-do. And my dad, the only thing he ever wanted to do, he wanted to learn how to fly an airplane.
Oh.
And so they put him in flight school. And so at age 16, he became a licensed pilot.
Nice.
And then in World War II, he tried to join the Canadian Air Force, and they rejected him. Well, first the United States Air Force. Well, it wasn't Air Force at that time; it was Army Air Corps. But they said that he lacked the schooling because he had dropped out in the 10th grade. So then he went to Canada, and they said, well, you've got an operation you're going to have, and then we can accept you. He went back to have the operation, and at that time, and this was in Mesa, Arizona, the British established a flight school in Mesa. And so he became a flight instructor during World War II for the British.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And then he became the United States Air Force used civilian flight instructors, so he did that in Texas. So no, I didn't do any sharecropping.
Okay.
Nice.
So Grant, you've thrown me off track. I have no idea where to go from here.
Oh no, you're just fine. So we were talking kind of like the Scouts honor code.
Oh,
You said had the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And so, at one point in time, I was very religious. And then, a situation came up, and I'm not going to go into that
Oh, that's perfect.
because it involved just a lot more than just religion. But it involved the court system. I never thought I would ever have to pay a lawyer for anything because if you live a good life, it shouldn't be necessary. Well, it turned out that that wasn't the case. And so I was involved in a Salem-style witch hunt for 2 years. And it finally came to an end when the judge went out and blew his brains out.
Gosh.
Whoa. Wait, so was this like an actual witch hunt?
It followed the same concept. You are guilty if you deny that you're guilty.
Okay.
And I wasn't the one that was charged, but I was threatened for 2.5 years with criminal contempt of court. So every day I thought, is this the day I'm going to go to jail? And you just can't get that out of your mind. At least I couldn't. And I felt like at the time that I was doing chemical damage to my brain, and I think I probably was. But anyway, the net result was I came out of that a different person. And I am no longer religious. I feel like I'm still spiritual. I still try to do the right thing, but religion is in my past. But that answer. Oh, that's the spiritual part. The mental part. UCA has taken care of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing the things. Neurology, for example, that you both need to take that. Whether I mean,
Sounds hard.
yes, it is, unless
Personal happiness. Yeah.
Personal happiness. Unless you don't have to take the test or the homework
Or
or
the homework or pay for it.
I was in that class and I met this young lady, classmate, and we are still friends. She doesn't call me grandfather
Okay.
or grandpa like the other. I've got 3 granddaughters. The UCA, well, one of them's not UCA, although she has been to UCA. Girls that call me grandpa. One of them, of course, is Zoe.
Right.
Just an incredible individual. Another one is from Mexico, and then a third is also from Taiwan. And she's had some issues that she's had to deal with. So hopefully I've helped her a little bit on that. Okay, so how did I get? Oh, neurology. Yeah. Think of all the stuff your brain does.
Yeah.
Close your eyes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Everyone listening better be doing this too.
Close your eyes. Listen to Richard.
yeah. Okay. Your pointer finger, stick it out away from all the others. Okay, good. Now, take your other hand and do the same thing. So you've got both hands. Now, take and point your fingers to each other and and have them touch. Now, touch the tip of your nose. Have you ever given any thought? And now you can open your eyes.
Okay.
Have you ever given any thought to what is involved in that? First of all, you have to know where your fingers are. And you don't even think about it. You just know that they're there. That the mind has to keep track of that, know where they're at. Then I ask you to put them together. Well, what's involved there? The mind has to it has to take what it hears from me, convert that into a thought, and follow that direction. That's a lot of stuff that it's doing all at the same time. And then it has to direct the muscles to make it work.
Right.
And make sure, if you don't know where your fingers are, you're going to go like this, or poke your eye out. So it's amazing what goes on up there.
Yeah.
It is.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was walking to my dorm and I was like, I'm not thinking about moving my legs and they're moving.
Yeah.
I'm just walking, but
Absolutely.
how?
Yeah.
It's just normal.
Like your breathing is a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can tell yourself not to breathe, but if you go unconscious,
It's going to.
your body will naturally start taking breaths.
Yeah.
And you're not you're unconscious. You can't consciously say it.
And blinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the involuntary system.
Yeah.
Whereas this is voluntary.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason that I have this is because there's my nerves are damaged to where the communication between my feet and my brain has been lost. So if I want to walk over there, the rest of my body says, okay, well, I better kind of lean this way to walk over there. And then as I start falling, the feet will say, did you say something?
What was that?
So there's all that coordination that has to take place, or if it doesn't, you become like me, and you don't want to do that.
Right. So, what would you say like the difference between mental and spiritual well-being are?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Boy, did I tell you I don't want hard questions?
I'm sorry.
No, I think there is a difference. Mental, you're doing things like 1 + 1 is 2, and I'm going to remember Caleb's name, and I can't remember Grant's to save my life.
Yeah.
That's mental. Spiritual is kind of dealing with the moral or ethical part of life. You're asking someone for a definition that I'm giving that is probably not in the book.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. I've got to tell you, because you did bring this up.
Okay.
UCA has an ethics bowl team. Have you ever heard of the ethics bowl?
I have heard of it, yes.
Okay.
I've not done it or seen it.
Okay. 2 years ago, the ethics bowl, what happens is there's states that are grouped into an area. So you've got the Texas regional, and it includes Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, as I recall. And they meet in the fall in San Antonio for a competition. 2 years ago, UCA took two teams down there. One of them, and I think there were about 20 schools involved, one of them came in second out of those 20. The other one came in first. And so the top three get to go to nationals. And I know that I haven't kept track of them this year, but I looked it up today, as a matter of fact, to see if they were in the nationals, and they are. So they had, at least one team had to have made it into the top three. And what they do is deal with ethical questions that are current. And our team is doing a very good job of doing that.
Nice.
And it's the philosophy department is where it's coming out of.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. UCA is, well, I am very biased.
Right. we all kind of are.
It's just got a special spirit about it. And I'm just grateful. Even if you don't do this, it's just, and I've had other people tell me that they've been at other places, and UCA just has a different spirit about it that's very special. Caleb, Grant, are you in the honors program?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Caleb, you may know Jeb.
I don't think so.
Okay. He's a freshman.
Okay.
And he was in the honors program at U of A, Fayetteville. And then he decided to transfer down here, and he's in the honors program here. He says the difference is night and day.
Wow.
This is so much better here.
Why do you think that is?
You'll have to ask him. Yeah. Go to the primary source, not a secondary source. Go to the primary source.
Why do you focusing on the Richard source, why do you think like UCA sticks out other than like U of A or BB or the other schools you've encountered?
Okay, I didn't catch the first part of the sentence.
Like you said, there's a different spirit to UCA.
Yeah.
Like, why is that?
Because I'm extremely biased.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I think other people come here and feel that same bias, I guess. I can, Jeb will tell you that there's a difference, and UCA is better. My son, although he didn't he did take a summer class at UCA, but everything else was through BB and then Arkansas State. And if you're going to go into engineering, I would recommend Arkansas State because they do a great job. After you've graduated and have I think 2 years of experience under your belt,
Right.
you take a test, a proficiency test, uh, and a lot of times it takes 2 or 3 times to finally pass it. He passed it on the first round.
Wow.
And ASU's got a good program. And since we don't, now we've got we do have some classes that will go towards that, but we don't have an actual engineering degree that I'm aware of.
Right.
So I would recommend going the BB ASU route.
Yeah.
Because that really paid off for him.
That's cool.
I actually have biological granddaughters, and
Oh.
and 2 of them have graduated from UCA.
Oh, nice.
So you really are biased.
I am.
Did they go here while you were here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. One of them, I think she graduated 2 years ago, and then the other one in 2018.
Nice.
Now, and this is to the audience, credit scores.
Ooh.
Credit scores are very, very, very important. And the way you develop that is through credit. And so my granddaughter, and this Zoe will tell you the same thing, because she's also got an excellent credit score. But my granddaughter, biological granddaughter, wanted to have a car, and she didn't have the credit, nor did her mother, to buy the car. So they asked me, and when someone comes to me with tears coming down, don't do that, because I I just cave in.
Yeah.
And I did in this case. The Standard Council is never, ever co-sign for anyone under any circumstance, because it'll destroy that relationship. Well, my granddaughter never missed a payment.
That's good.
And so that helped her credit score. And I encouraged her to get a credit card. And if you get a credit card, and I'm encouraging, do you know what your credit score is?
I don't have
So,
one.
I mean, I've never borrowed anything, so probably 0.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, this is only if you have self-control.
Okay.
Right.
Never if you don't have self-control, because it'll just get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But apply for a credit card. You'll probably be denied, except for those, because you're a college student, sometimes they'll give it to you. Or you can get one where you put a certain amount of money in, and then you can use the credit up to that point, and then you basically pay in advance. So they're not at risk, and that develops your credit score. Both granddaughters, Zoe and Ashley, when they graduated from college, their credit score was in the 800s.
That's good.
That is very good. Okay. And that's where you want yours to be. There's several reasons why. You don't realize this probably, but when you get automobile insurance, they look at your credit score.
They do.
And that's what they base your insurance premiums on.
Okay.
And so if you've got an 800, you get the best rate.
Nice.
Because people that have high credit scores are not the ones that go crazy,
Yeah.
because they haven't developed their brain yet. So get a credit card. Now, never, ever buy anything on credit unless you've already got the money
To pay back.
to pay it. Yes.
Right.
Zoe used hers to get an American airline credit card that gave her 80,000 air miles. So she was able to go to Taiwan to go home. And the credit card essentially paid for that.
Right.
That's cool.
And I've been able to do the same thing. So credit is extremely important. What a credit rating really does is it tells them that you're a person of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And you definitely want to present yourself as a credible person.
Right.
So that's the big tip for today.
Yeah.
Ashley was able to, because of her credit score, buy a house on her own.
Nice.
And it was at the time that the interest rates were really low.
Right.
Okay.
And so she's got a very low interest rate on a house that she owns.
That's good.
That is tremendous.
How old is she?
She graduated in 2018, so I can't add.
Almost 30.
Yeah, she's
20
not 30 yet, but
26,
she's
27.
close.
Right.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's a goal for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know how
Well,
I'm going to get there, but
well, what's the first step?
credit, maybe.
No, not maybe. Because you'll never be able to buy a house on your own without credit,
Yeah.
because that's just too expensive. And unfortunately, that brings me up to this.
Oh,
You
okay.
brought us some money? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No. Because I was so terribly poor, I didn't do a good job of raising my kids. So in 2012, I had a daughter that was about to lose her house, and she did lose it. I had another one that I thought she was going to lose it, but somehow she managed to not be evicted. And then I had a son that decided he was going to get married, but didn't have a job, didn't have a house. Anyway, bottom line is, this was in 2012. There was 4 houses in a cul-de-sac next to each other that came up for sale, and I bought them.
Oh, nice.
And so now, and another thing, I learned this from a friend of mine that was a purchasing manager.
Right.
And he went to a competition of purchasing managers and learned that it's really important to bid low.
Oh, yeah.
So the person that was wanting to sell these houses was trying to sell them for $65,000. I said, I'll buy them for $40,000, and which I thought was really low.
Yeah.
And she came back and says 48.
Mhm.
So I bought them for $48,000.
Nice.
That was in 2012, and I get things like this on that $48,000.
Oh, wow.
Now there's
Try to cover it just in case the camera. That's how much you get paid for it?
that's how much they say that they'll pay for that house, and that's just
Oh.
one house.
So
Oh.
you'd make like what is that?
Except,
Almost $100,000 profit.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But there's some bad things about that. Number one, housing prices are going up
Right.
dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's because of people like this. And one of the things that this will point out to you is if you're renting, you're not developing equity.
Yep.
You know, it's just money down the drain. And so these 4 houses are at some point are going to be turned over to my kids.
Nice.
And so they'll have that.
Right.
If you don't have good credit, you're not going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you do like Ashley, you'll have a nice home with low interest rates. So
Gotta love that.
that's what you've got to do.
That's a good
That
goal.
means getting a credit card. You should have done that when you were 15 years old, but you didn't.
Mhm.
But now you know.
Mhm.
And I would highly recommend doing it
It's a good idea.
Right.
now.
I might look into that.
Mike.
I'm an economics major with a finance minor. So
Okay. So you are over at COB.
mm-hmm.
Do you go there?
Not if I can help it.
I don't like that place either.
I like Irby.
Okay.
I like just about any. I've taken several psychology classes. I've taken a few sociology, anthropology.
That's interesting stuff.
It is. It absolutely is. I'm taking a religion class right now that is very interesting.
Oh.
It's religion and psychology.
Okay.
And anyway, it's a very interesting class. I mean, I've taken a sampling of everything that's here. The one thing that I will not do again is drawing.
Drawing.
Oh, like art?
Like art.
Okay.
Because I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was taking an 8.5 piece of paper and sketching, I guess is the proper term, but I didn't know sketching from drawing.
Yeah.
It was not that. It was a huge piece of paper. And we used charcoal.
Oh.
And we were in there it was during May intercessions, so we were there 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks.
What?
I felt like I was coming out of a coal mine at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're covered in soot and coal.
I will never want to do that again.
Yeah.
I bet you don't see charcoal the same
No,
anymore.
no.
Do you have the paintings that you made? Did you keep
No.
them?
That was, and the teacher was really good.
Okay.
But I said, I don't want any of this. I left I bought over $100 worth of materials for it. And I said, I don't want any of it. I've had it.
We should go see if they're hanging up. Go find them.
Somewhere.
I'm sure they ended up in the trash.
Maybe.
But anthropology, that was a mind changer. And but there is a wealth of information available to you through these instructors at UCA.
Yeah.
Get to know your instructors.
All you have to do is turn 60 and you get it for free.
Yeah.
Do what?
I said all you have to do is turn 60 and get it for free.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good
Exactly.
idea.
Now, when you get to be 60, that may not be the case.
Right.
And it's because, and this is probably going to be offensive, it's the way the politics is going, especially this last election.
Yeah.
I mean, it has just turned things upside down.
Are there like are you doing stuff to education?
Everything. The voucher program, for example. Do any of these people get to use the vouchers?
I don't know.
No, they don't. And the reason they don't, because to use them, you're going to go to a private school, and the tuition for the private school is more than the voucher. So the voucher is reducing the cost, but it's not eliminating the cost. So who benefits from the vouchers? The wealthy. What does it do to these people? It takes money away from the schools, the public schools, so they don't have as much money to use because it's going to vouchers. And that's what we've got going on in this state, in the state of Arkansas. And that's what Trump wants to have happen too. Enough of that.
If you were president, how would you fix that issue?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
I was wanting to ask
Okay,
that earlier, but
and that is a good question. First of all, I would look at Scandinavia because they have a very low poverty rate.
okay.
They have high taxes,
Mm.
but they have a wonderful safety net. Ours, we think we've got one here, and it does help some people. But if you're at the very bottom, and this goes into it, it's tragic. It tells the story of a woman in Wisconsin that her life was tragic all the way through, but she thought she had some welfare money coming in, and then at the time of writing, she had nothing. And we think that we're helping the poor, but it's just erratic. And the way the new system is, there was an old system, and we decided that there were too many people, and it turned out to be a myth, but there were too many people that were generational welfare recipients, that it was just passed down from one generation to another. And that these people were lazy and didn't want to work. Women were having kids just to get more money. All of that has turned out to be not a myth. So we changed it in under Bill Clinton to where there was a work requirement and a limit. I think it's a 5-year limit. Anyway, that broke it even further. We have our welfare system is a joke. And all you have to do is look at Scandinavia and try to adopt some of that stuff. But, and okay, I'm political again. The Republican Party is dead set against it. Buy America. And they want the money to go to the wealthy. We are moving from we're already there, kind of, from a democracy to an oligarchy. As I've looked at it, and I've taken a class dealing with the time period, Hitler in 53 days was able to change Germany from a democracy to a dictatorship. 53 days. And Trump is doing the same thing. Whether he'll accomplish it is another thing, but he's certainly headed in that direction. I said I wasn't going to be. I lied to you.
That's okay. I'm not super educated politically. I can't say I agree with you, which I mean that's okay, But I don't know if I'm not super knowledgeable about what he's been doing, entirely. But I mean, I feel like you can look at this little bit that he's been in office, but you have to look at the whole however many years of the other presidents too, because he's dealing with what's been built up, and then who knows what direction it's going to go to. But I mean, there's all sorts of other factors.
And I think I mentioned your worldview is totally different from mine. If you go to the College of Business, you've got a lot of Republicans there. If you go to Irby, hardly any. In the political science, and that's what they do is study politics, I don't know that there's a single Republican. In the history department, and they study history, I don't think there's a single Republican.
Wow.
In anthropology, I know that there's not a Republican in anthropology. Sociology, I don't think there is either. If Irby was the only voter, they would have overwhelmingly voted for Harris. I mean, I don't know. It would be really lopsided.
Interesting. Do you think that that demographic kind of influences what's being taught, in your opinion?
It has to do with training, and they are learning history.
Yeah.
You are not.
Yeah.
You are learning. This is not going to sound good either, but you are learning your politics, your worldview through your religion. And 85% of those in your religion are voting Trump. 85% of agnostics and atheists are voting Harris. We could go into the Bible and compare Trump with what Jesus talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He would be at the very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's evangelicals that are voting for him.
Mm. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of the person or like what they're doing?
Evangelicals, and in particular, what's the term? Religious national? No, that's not conservative nationalists, but religious. Anyway, those that are religious and want us to be what they think is a good government.
Mm-hmm.
You want to break down the separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
You want America to go back to being a Christian nation. The problem is it wasn't a Christian nation to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You have to see the history and how it was developed, and it was developed during, it was developed during a period of in what they refer to as enlightenment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a short period there of the first great. I need to get a new brain.
You were just fine. You were just fine.
Anyway, there of people going back to religion, but at the time that the Constitution was written, there were Christians as part of it, but there were also a lot of deists, and their thinking was that there was a God, but he had put everything together and then kind of left it alone, and it was up to them to figure out how to make things work.
Right.
There may have been some, I hate to use the word atheist because it has such a terrible taste in religious persons.
But it, atheist simply means like the belief in no God.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. There may have been some of those. Thomas Jefferson was a Christian on one hand and a deist on another, and maybe even an atheist on another.
Jefferson was a weird guy.
Yeah.
Weird guy.
Very intelligent, weird guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And excuse me. He thought that the Immaculate Conception, for example, that people would realize within 20 years that that was nonsense. He created his own Bible.
Yep. The Jefferson Bible.
Yep. And what did he take out of it?
A lot of things. He took a lot of things out of it.
The miracles.
Yes.
He said that Jesus died before he should have. That he had a lot of good thoughts, and that we should learn from him. And I learned from it. The Beatitudes. I was a tax auditor, and in the scriptures that's called a publican. So and Jesus associated with publicans.
Yeah.
So I felt pretty good about that.
What's really interesting is that during like the time that Scripture takes place, like the tax collectors were thought of as very, like they were very wealthy because they were taking people's money.
Yeah.
Oh,
But they were thought of like very poorly by like public. Oh, what's the word? Public opinion.
yeah.
Like if you were like, hey, would you be friends with that guy? The first question would be like, is he a tax collector? Then no.
That has been my experience.
Oh,
firsthand.
even now, really interesting.
Yeah. As a tax auditor, it's really interesting. You go and meet the people, and they're all smiles.
Mm-hmm.
But they're really big smiles when you walk out the door.
Mm,
You don't make a whole lot of friends.
right.
If you're a college professor or a high school teacher, you make friends
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of your life.
Right.
I've got lots, not as a tax auditor.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, you're not going into auditing. So,
That's your dream job, isn't it?
No, economics.
yeah.
Yeah.
In your economics,
Mm-hmm.
think about this.
Oh yeah.
I have a grandson that graduated in economics,
Mm-hmm.
and he's making good money.
Mm-hmm.
My granddaughter, by the way, that was able to buy a house,
Mm-hmm.
she decided fast food was not the way to go, so she became a bank teller.
That's quite the switch up. Fast food to bank teller.
Yeah, but she was able to do it, and she worked for 3 banks in Conway. So when she graduated, it was a seamless move from school to
Right.
work, and now she's making almost $100,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So she did things right.
Mhm.
Soy also did things right,
Mhm.
but her focus was not on money.
Right.
And so she works for the Canadian National Ballet
Mm-hmm.
in Toronto.
Is she like a dancer, or does she like
No,
manage it?
when she was here, she was part of the Conway Symphony Orchestra as a
Okay.
violinist. She was also a pianist. Both of those. She was just incredible, both
Mhm.
on the piano and on the violin.
It's really cool.
Have I said more than I should have?
No, you're
No,
completely fine.
you were just fine. You were just fine.
I think the conversation's flowing pretty well.
Yeah. I do have a question for you though.
Okay.
We've kind of we've touched on religion and stuff, but what do you believe?
What do I believe?
What do you believe?
Okay.
Personally, what are your
I think that when I die,
Mhm.
if I'm really lucky and my ashes end up in the right place, I may come back as a black vulture,
Ah, okay.
or at least part of a black
Okay.
vulture.
Okay.
Maybe the wings.
I don't care.
Okay.
But when I die, I die.
Okay.
I don't. In terms of a spirit,
Mhm.
that is a dualist. You feel like you've got a physical body. You can
Right.
see the physical body, but you also feel like you've got a spirit.
Mhm.
I feel that same way, and so it's natural for human beings to come up with the idea that there is a spirit.
Mhm.
I don't believe that anymore.
Okay.
We've got an amazing network, I think it's 82 billion,
Mhm.
not thousand, billion neurons up here
Mhm.
with lots of connections, trillions of connections
Yeah.
that's doing amazing things. And one of the things that we've also got glia cells that are going around and seeing, okay, that one's not working very well, so I'll snip that one off.
Mhm.
And that's why if you aren't exposed to language,
Mhm.
and you're say 10 years old, you're never going to develop language the way that you could have developed it when you were 4 years old,
Right.
because that's gone around. That's not being used, so I'll just get rid of
Right.
that.
Get rid of it. Interesting. So when you die, do you think it's lights out? You just
Yeah.
you just cease to exist?
Yep.
Interesting.
Well, cease to exist as I am right now,
Okay.
because I'll turn to dust.
Right. But as far as consciousness goes.
Yeah, consciousness.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Mm.
What do you think that happens to I I know this is a really deep kind of philosophical question, but like, what do you think happens to you? Like,
Am I accountable to someone? Is that,
no, like what happens to,
well,
I guess the bigger question here is, what do you think makes a human being a human being?
um, 4.5 billion years.
Okay.
Well, it actually goes back beyond that because
Right.
at the very beginning, there was just hydrogen, basically hydrogen, some helium. I think there may have been some lithium.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was developed into a star.
Mm-hmm.
And that star then, as it died out, it supernovaed.
Mm-hmm.
And that intense explosion merged atoms to where the atoms that we have available right now became available. So each one of us has been through a supernova because that's how we got iron, for example, uranium, and it took 4.5 billion years as a planet for us to develop from RNA, DNA
Mm-hmm.
to what we are today.
Right.
We have almost all of our genetic makeup is identical to the apes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We have something that they don't have. Well, one key thing that we have that they don't, and that's vocal cords.
Mm-hmm.
We can communicate with a very complex language
Right.
that they cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And that language has made a huge difference. And then we learned how to write things down. So we can come up with an idea,
Mm-hmm.
write it down, and then the next generation can take that and add upon that, and that's gotten us where we're at. And right now, we are working, and again, what was one of the first things that Trump did? He got us out of the Paris Accords. You may think, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
When is Jesus coming back?
Nobody knows the time of the hour.
Is it imminent?
What do you mean by imminent? Like,
We don't
inevitable?
know, but could it be, is it going to be soon?
We don't know. It could be.
It could be.
It
Are
could
you
be,
expecting it to be?
hopefully. It could happen right now. Could happen in
Yeah.
10 years. I mean, nobody knows.
And how long have people been thinking that?
2,000 years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Paul thought it was going to happen in his lifetime. And everyone after that, it's going to be in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's not? What are we doing to this planet, our home, our only home?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing to this planet if he doesn't come?
Mm-hmm.
Because the attitude, I think, within Christianity is, yeah, we're messing it up, but he's going to fix it when he comes.
Mm-hmm.
What if he doesn't come? And what are you doing to your posterity?
Yeah.
The preamble
Yeah.
talks about posterity. What is Trump doing for your posterity?
Yeah. I think this could be a political conversation or a religious conversation. I don't think because you can look at Donald Trump and like he claims like Christianity, but you can't really know someone's truth. Nobody knows, your heart. I can't look at you and know that you're not going to like shoot me in the face right now. Nobody knows each other's true heart and like how real their beliefs are. And I feel like, what James talks about is like if you have that faith, you're going to want to like show it by your works and by your actions.
Absolutely.
And I feel like if some people don't do that, like you said, there's a lot of people who don't want to, make better what there is now and where they are now.
And based on that, what has Trump done to show how he feels and what he thinks? It's pretty open.
Mhm.
You go to the young rich man,
Yeah.
and his conversation with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says, well, you've got to do this and this and this.
Right.
You take those things and say, okay, let's see how that fits Trump.
Yeah.
The rich man had done a lot of the good things. I don't know that Trump has done any of those things. And yet, it's the evangelicals that put him in office.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that could be looked at from both perspectives as well, from like both parties. But I mean, beyond the conversation of like themselves and what's going on in like DC and the White House, or France or other countries. I mean, looking at it from like where we are, I mean, we can only change, what we can do. I mean, Trump may claim Christianity and may, believe, like say he believes it, but based on like whatever he does, that's his own thing. He may be living to, like you said, he might be have Christianity in one hand, his own path in his other hand, and we're not responsible for him, but we can do what we can do, even though we wish we could do more.
Yes, and Caleb, I'm very grateful for having you as a friend.
Yeah.
Most of my friends at UCA are affiliated with a Christian organization of one kind or another. They're good people. Y'all are good people. But you've got one bad... Your politics is all screwed up. And this says that that is Trump, and the guy behind him is my wife's nephew.
Oh, really? Wow.
He's in the Secret Service,
Okay.
and
That's pretty cool.
he has been in Washington. He was with Clinton and Bush and everyone else after that, right up until now. And he'll be retired. He's in his 50s, and he'll be retiring soon. But anyway, Clinton, they were foul-mouthed, not very good people. Bush was totally different. And Bush liked to ride a bicycle, so this guy had to ride bicycles. And I haven't heard much of how he feels about the others. But again, this is just taken a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where I'm going with this.
It's okay.
None. So why did? Because it was on my phone, I guess.
That's really cool. I mean,
No. Yeah, we were talking about politics and religion and how the two are correlated.
Yeah.
And that a bunch of your
Yeah.
friends on UCA are
Yeah.
affiliated with Christian
And
organizations.
again, one of the professors in Irby, after the 2016 election,
Right.
took a sabbatical and wrote a book about how Trump got into office. We have over 300 million people in this country, and that was the man that y'all chose? That's pretty pathetic. But it is what it is, and I have to live with it. Our posterity's going to have to live with it. Have I said too much?
no, you're good.
No,
You're good.
no, you're just fine. That's what this is for. Is for
Yeah.
people to talk and tell us what they think.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love comfort,
Mm-hmm.
so we tend to be with people that are like-minded.
Right.
And when we do that, there's a thing called confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
And so the two of you in talking are going to confirm each other's belief that Trump
Right.
was the man for the hour. I talk with different people, and I do watch Fox News occasionally just so that I see that side.
Yeah.
Right.
Newsmax, I used to subscribe to Newsmax. Um, I try to stay. If it's too far to the right, if it's too far to the left, I
Right.
try
The extremes.
to avoid those.
Yeah.
And there are some news sources that I consider reliable. Reuters is one of those. The AP is another one. PBS is another one. And there's organizations that fact check. Fox, are you aware that they had to pay almost $1 billion because of lies that they were telling?
No, I don't watch the news.
Good.
I honestly,
no,
I don't
that's
watch
not-
the news
yeah.
either.
Honestly, I don't really care or think about politics ever.
Well,
Honestly, sometimes I do want to get in conversations like this, but it's not something I really care about because, I mean, I do feel like, yes, it's part of my life because it's the country I'm in, it's the leadership that, that's going on. But it's like, when comparing to all that, I'm not really significant to that
yeah,
majority, to that size.
yeah.
And
And I don't have a good answer
yeah,
because, from what, and I do look at politics,
Mhm.
and I do know people that's their job is to look at politics,
Yeah.
and they are not voting for Trump.
Right.
And that's about all I can say about that. I do not expect. There was a time when I thought Jesus is coming, things are ripe for him to come. Particularly in the 60s and 70s, I really thought that was going to be the case. Did he come? No. Is it going to? We could make a wager, and I wouldn't be able to collect because I would be dead. But he's not coming.
Do you think that's been, I don't think it's going to sound harsh, but do you think that's been, you kind of feel like let down because that hasn't happened in your lifetime?
No. No, I'm not a Christian because there are issues. For example, the Southern Baptist Church began in 1845, right?
I don't know the
I don't
dates.
1845. What was the reason that it started?
Slavery, right?
Yes, absolutely. If I was to be in a debate and the Bible was the only book we were going to use or the only source, the side I would win on is slavery because the Bible supports slavery.
What kind of slavery?
Are you talking about generational slavery or just where one person is responsible in entirety to another person? And that the Bible defends.
Where does it defend that?
Let's go all the way back to Egypt,
Yeah.
which, by the way, there is no historical or anthropological evidence that the Jews were ever in slavery in Egypt. That is a myth based on empirical evidence. Based on empirical evidence, Noah's flood never happened. That is also myth. If you're a Reformed Jew, the the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis down through Deuteronomy.
The Torah.
Yes, the Torah. Thank you. It just slipped out of my mind. Um, the they consider that a book of instructional fables. You believe it as a Baptist. You believe that the Bible is inerrant, right?
You want to define that word for me?
Okay, that it is infallible. That it is, if it says it, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that the Bible is the truth.
When it conflicts with science, the Bible is to be taken for truth.
You see, I don't think the Bible ever conflicts with science, though.
Okay. When was the earth created?
Well, I mean, if you look at the Bible, we don't know, because the Bible. I mean, I believe both science and Bible like go hand in
Okay.
hand, like you said. Science says like you said, trillions or not trillion, billions of years ago, however
Yeah,
long.
4.5
Yeah. And I think, I mean,
plus 1 day.
yeah, I don't think personally, I don't know my own take on like the Big Bang and evolution and
Yeah.
everything, but science tells you why or how, it goes into all the process, and then you can go to the Bible and look at like why, the reason behind that. And I mean, you can look at like you were talking about the Big Bang and everything, how it started out with the hydrogen and everything. I mean, that reaction.
Actually, it started out before the hydrogen, but that was one of the first things that came.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, that had to originate from somewhere as well. Something had to spark that. And I think even what's the guy, Stephen Hawking, like said that there had to be something to cause this reaction, to cause like the Big Bang.
But we don't know what it is.
No.
But you do.
Yes, I feel like when looking at the Big Bang, it's like lighting a fuse for TNT. Like it'll explode, but you can't light it if you don't have anything to light it with. If there's nobody there to light it.
Yeah. Yeah. Science cannot explain how it started.
Yeah.
It can go back almost to the Big Bang, but it can't go back all the way. I mean, it's within seconds, but it can't get to the Big Bang, and it can speculate. That's where it goes. Are you familiar with every culture has developed a god? They're not all the same, but they all developed a god. And they did that because they had no other explanation. For lightning, for example, for thunder, for floods.
Yeah.
Almost every culture has a flood story.
It's very true.
From a Christian perspective, you say, well, that's because they all know about Noah's flood. No, it's because they all experienced floods. Universal floods, not necessarily, but evidence shows that there was never a universal flood. And that's what started me looking elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, biblically, looking with the flood, for example, what do you think was considered universal? Like when
Covered the entire earth
well, I mean,
at the same time.
yeah. I forget. So this Bible actually, it's a anthropological archaeology Bible that
Okay.
talks about like the history and like has like examples and stuff. And I would like to pull it up in Noah because like it said something that I don't want to say wrong.
Right.
But it talked about the world.
Isn't the economy of ancient Palestine?
Probably.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm an econ major, so.
I don't know if it said economy.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I know I just completely killed your.
It's okay.
I really want to see economy of the ancient Near East. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Anyways.
And there's this whole like thing that talks about the ancient Near Eastern flood accounts of like the Mesopotamia religions. The Epic of Gilgamesh talks about it as well, and it's not even like a religious text. It was a story. And the world in that time wasn't like North America, South America, Europe, Asia. It was I mean, when looking at it when looking into the worldview of that time period, whenever it was, that world was just like that whole area of like Mesopotamia and Asia, which wasn't really like discovered yet. But I could totally say like I think it like covered the entire Earth, But the way it's like it like red when talking about, I don't know why I closed it. The land. Um, yeah, upon the earth, upon the land, like that. I'd say, like, does that make sense? Like that land, that area of where
That it was a
everybody
local.
is. Yeah.
And I think that's what Christianity has had to resort to,
Mm-hmm.
because there's absolutely no evidence of a universal flood. Now, if you go to Answers in Genesis, they'll say, well, look at the Himalayas. There's fossils up there. That just proves it. No, that proves that we have plate tectonics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with plate tectonics or what is involved there.
Like them, like kind of like how earthquakes work, but like on a different scale, like the
On a
Earth's
big scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible. If you were to take what do they call it? The exercise ball,
Yoga balls.
Huh?
Yoga balls.
I don't know.
Oh,
like
okay.
the big bouncy ones.
Yeah, the big,
Yeah.
and they're blue normally.
Yeah.
Right. The blue
Yeah,
purple.
you take one of those, and you then say, okay, that's the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
How thick would the crust be?
Like when?
Now,
I couldn't tell you.
yeah. There's a geologist YouTube that his explanations of things are really good.
Mhm.
Anyway, he says, I think it was 11 sheets of paper. It's that thin on that largest scale. I'm amazed that we're not shaking right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times when it shakes, and there's in plate tectonics, you have these plates, and they come together at points, and it's the San Andreas Fault,
Yeah.
for example, is one area where it's really volatile,
Mhm.
and it's because the Pacific plate is being pushed under the the other plate, North American plate, I guess. See, I don't learn much. But anyway, that is one area, and you've got volcanoes.
Mountains.
No, it is we have volcanoes that ring. It's called the Pacific Ring
Pacific
of
Rim, yeah.
fire that are on those boundaries.
Yeah, the underwater. Are you talking about the underwater volcanoes?
There are those as well.
Yeah.
Hawaii, for example, will have another island pretty soon. Well, pretty soon.
Potentially.
Maybe.
Scientifically, pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly.
As in, like, a couple million years, pretty soon.
Possibly. Yeah. And then if you trace it, the Hawaiian Islands, the bigger ones are at the eastern end, and the smaller ones, they go almost to Japan, and then they cut north.
Right.
And so something happened to cause that to cut north. But we do know that there's this hot spot, and as land moves over that hot spot, it develops volcanoes, and you get the Big Island and the island of Oahu, and
Yeah.
Oahu, being further to the west, is an older, and so its volcanoes are dormant or what's the other term? Not just inactive, dead.
Okay.
But that's not the term.
Yeah.
So that's what plate tectonics is about. And it's if you've ever looked at a video where it shows them in motion, you have India that is south of the equator, and it is pushing north, and it pushes up against Asia, and it created the Himalayas as a result of that. So the Himalayas were at one time under the sea, and that's where all the sea fossils were developed, was when it was down there. And then when India pushed up against it, then it went up.
It's really interesting. I know that a lot of societies, because we originally started off the first known religion was something called animism. Are you familiar with animism?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I have this steel trap mind that is rusted through.
You're just fine.
Yeah.
But animism is like basically like something is moving, right? Like my hand is moving, or the trees are moving, right? Anything that moves, anything that's animated.
Yeah.
There has to be, the thought is that there is some sort of spirit controlling that, like some sort of force that we can't see. And that's what they refer to as animism.
Okay. Yeah.
And these ancient societies and ancient religions, I took a religious studies class, which is why I know this stuff.
Who was your instructor?
Philip Spivey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you aware he's a Jew?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I have been to a synagogue before.
Okay.
Yeah, took a tour there. Really
He's,
interesting guy.
was he a hard teacher?
Not for me, but
Good for
some
you,
people.
because he is for a lot of people.
Yeah. I enjoyed his class. I would love to have him on the podcast sometime if he would be willing to do it.
I think he would.
He's a really interesting guy. Got a lot of information. Yeah. But anyways, what I was about to get into is that back to the Noah's flood, a lot of religions think of that as like a tsunami. Like they see the flood as a tsunami.
Okay.
And that's one of the things Dr. Spivey was telling us is that there are some correlations there, as in like each society waking up in the middle of the night to have a huge wave encompassing their entire everything that they can see.
Yeah.
You know, and it would seem like the entire world is flooded.
Exactly. You take the Euphrates and the Tigris.
Mm-hmm.
When they flooded, I mean, they were parallel, and there are places that there are sediments that are a few feet deep that all happen at one time.
Right.
And so if you were living in that, you would assume that it was worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
There's speculation that the Black Sea may have done, people were living there, and then the water was able to get in very rapidly and create the Black Sea.
But it's very interesting to think about things like that. I love thinking about that. I like science too.
Yeah.
But I guess my point kind of goes back to you talk. First of all, what religion did you grow up as? Like you said, you used to be very religious.
Yes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so Mormon.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I spent 2 years in Hawaii as a missionary.
Okay. Interesting. So I go to a Baptist church, obviously, and I grew up Southern Baptist, but I don't consider myself a Baptist.
Okay.
I consider myself just a follower of Christ.
Okay. Finish what you're saying.
No, I mean, I'm very lukewarm on the opinion of denominations, simply because as we were talking about earlier, when you get together with a group of people that you're very comfortable with and you agree on everything else, there's not a lot of growth happening there. There's not a lot of productive conversation. And so the problem with a church getting together and having different opinions on things and being like, okay, fine, I'm going to go over here and start my own church. I see that as a problem because I think if we're all surrounded by this same book and we all believe that this is the word of God, I think that we can stay together in that, right? I mean, you could look at the Tower of Babel and there's an argument to be made there as well. But I think that conversations like this conversations with people of other religions and stuff, those things need to happen. We can't just segregate ourselves off into our own church where we get along with people and believe the same exact things, or else there's not going to be any growth. You're not going to find common ground because you can't find common ground with somebody you're not talking to.
Yeah.
You know? So that's kind of like my perspective. Is that it's just like I follow Christ. I believe that the Bible is true. But I'm not a Baptist. I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a Methodist. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less about any of that. You know?
Okay. And I think that's kind of a healthy way to look at it. I was asked by a friend that I met at the lunchroom
Oh, nice.
last year, and we have become good friends. I hope we remain good friends.
Yeah.
But she went to First Baptist, and she asked me to go, and I went a couple of times. And then I found out I could do it online. And so for over a year, I think I missed one Sunday. But I've essentially attended every Sunday except one. Where am I going with this? I have no. Oh, yes. The head minister is Del Wicker, and he kind of thinks, I think, much like you do. You know, he welcomes people and hopes that they become a member of his congregation, but he feels like they could go somewhere else and be just as well off.
Yeah.
I think it's in 1 Corinthians, it talks about the fact that Jesus is not the author of confusion, but rather of peace. And certainly peace is what he taught, although he did on occasion say that he divided. But if the Bible, this is Richard speaking.
Okay, go for it.
If the Bible was God's word, and if he was a good communicator, why do we have so many denominations with diverse beliefs? It doesn't make any sense to me. When we were about to have a civil war, and even through the Civil War, we had Christians on both sides believing totally different things. If the book that they believed in was true and perfect, why did they believe so differently? And if it wasn't clear, why didn't Jesus, who knows when a sparrow dies and claims to be knowing what you are thinking and doing, why didn't he come and say, hey, gang, you believe this, let me tell you what it really is. He didn't do that. He didn't do it with the Reformation. And that's, again, one of the things that I've thought about and the reason that I'm not religious anymore. There are 200 plus denominations just in the United States.
Yeah.
There are 40-some thousand worldwide of Christians
Yeah.
with very different beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay, can I answer your question with another question?
Yes.
Kind of. Why, I mean, going off of that, why wouldn't, because, I mean, God could totally have done that, you know.
My hearing
sorry.
is bad.
I said God could totally do that, right?
Yeah.
But then why wouldn't he come and just say, okay, everybody, I want you to believe in me and just, you guys love me, believe me, I just want to make you guys all Christian. Why doesn't he do that?
That's a good question. Why doesn't he do that?
Well, so when God created us, I mean, I know you probably know like the creation story and like Genesis and everything, and the idea of like free will and free choice.
Yeah.
Because if say that I pull out a gun, point it at Grant's head and say, "Hey, Grant, do you love me?" If he says yes, does he actually love me? Or if I go to my girlfriend and be like do the same thing, have a gun to her
He
head,
has a really wonderful girlfriend.
and say, "Hey, baby, do you love me?" And she's like, "No," and I shoot her in the head. Or she says yes, and I don't shoot her. Is that love? Does she love me?
Um, and the answer is when you're under threat of death,
Mhm.
you're going to do what, not always. And I probably am going to agree with your conclusion on that,
Yeah.
but it leads me to another.
Can I make my conclusion?
Yes,
before you
yes,
say it? Okay.
yes.
So I mean, you're probably. I just want to articulate it for like everybody, but I mean, God could totally force us into loving Him.
Yep.
It wouldn't be true love,
Yep,
So He gives us that
exactly.
opportunity to choose to love Him and choose to. I mean, He's not actually like, there's no physical gun involved, but you know what I mean. But we have that choice, and He's given us that free will because robotic love is not love,
Yeah. And that sounds good.
Mhm.
My problem, well, I've got several problems.
Mhm.
According to the way that I think you believe, our eternity from here on out is based on what we do right now in this life.
Mhm.
I just cannot imagine that being just.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with the doctrine of discovery? And this relates to the gun.
I don't know. I don't know if I
I'm
am.
not.
Okay. It dates back to roughly the mid 1400s,
Mhm.
at the time that Europeans were starting to colonize.
Mm.
And it was decreed by the Pope, called the doctrine of discovery,
Mhm.
that if you discovered a new land, your responsibility was first to try to convert those people to, in this case, Catholicism.
Yeah.
And then, and in any case, that land was going to be your land or your country's land. But if they did not convert, you held a gun to their head and pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
And that was the doctrine of discovery. And that's how the Incas were treated. That's
Yeah.
how the Aztecs were treated.
Yep.
That was pretty much the Indians right up through America's westward movement.
Mhm.
Now, the only thing that relates there is the fact that they had a choice. They could either convert or die.
Yeah.
A lot of them converted.
Whoa,
Whoa. Yeah.
That was you?
dude. You go get checked out.
Wow. Have you ever tried being part of an orchestra?
I did
Stomach
band. I did
orchestra.
band for 4 years in middle school.
Oh, speaking of, one of the people that is probably going to go to the thing on Monday posted that she was going to come. I don't know her, but her picture shows her with a saxophone.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm guessing that Kelsey knows her.
Casey,
That
You're good. You're good.
it's okay.
Thank you, but I'm not good. Just wait, Grant. I'm going to come up with a really strange name for you.
That's okay.
Greg.
It's okay.
Call him Greg.
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 Okay. This is not the last time I'll call her Kelsey. Once I start.
It's okay. That's fine.
That's really interesting though. The doctrine of discovery. I think I have heard of that before.
Yeah.
I think I'm familiar of something. I mean, of course, in high school they tend to censor certain details.
Yeah.
You know, middle school coming up when you're learning all that history, they tend to censor certain
Yeah.
details, so they kind of leave out some things. But
When I was in elementary school, which was a year or two before yours, I think.
Right. Just one or two.
Columbus was a great person, very noble. There are segments of our society that don't feel that way anymore. And then are you familiar with Hillsdale College?
Hillsdale Bible College.
It's not Bible, it's Hillsdale College in Michigan.
Okay, I'm familiar with the name. Yeah.
Okay. The president is a graduate he's from Pocahontas, Arkansas, and he's a graduate of ASU. And anyway, Trump, on the first term, established, I'm guessing it was at his direction, not Trump's, to rewrite the history of the United States. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. Anyway, it was going to be it was in response to the 1619 deal. Are you familiar with that?
What was the 1619 deal? Remind me of it, and I might be able to tell you.
Okay. I think it was published. Fact check anything.
Okay.
Anything I say.
Right.
I think it was published in the New York Times. I think it was even commissioned by the New York Times. 1619 was the first slave in America.
Okay.
Now, there were slaves earlier in the Caribbean,
Right.
but this was the first one in the United States,
Right.
which was not the United States at that point. But that history basically showed a lot of stuff that we did not know about how America was impacted for the good by African Americans, and they had never been given credit for it. Well, this was a response to that sanitized American history. We do not have a very honorable history.
You don't become a nation and have an honorable history.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And that's true for America. That's true for China, Japan, all of them. Is like if you uncover like how the government got set up, how the place was colonized, how these things, you're gonna go through multiple different of civilizations that either had power or were vying for power. And like genocide was just abundant in the ancient world throughout history. Like it's like the what's the phrase? Like the strongest survive.
Yes.
Or survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like whoever's the strongest, whoever has the most power is the one that gets it.
And they are the ones that write the histories, and they sanitize those histories.
I do not deny that.
Monday is, and you're going to both be there, right?
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll
I'm not
see.
completely sure yet because I have to wake up early on Tuesday. But
We try to be out of there by 7 o'clock.
okay.
But my experience, and it's only because I'm not as young as you are, is it wipes me out.
Yeah.
So it takes me 2 days to recover from just staying out there. And I don't want to miss any of my classes.
Yeah.
But it's only 15 minutes away.
Okay.
You can go from there to Hyper, take a shower,
Right.
and go to class. So even if you've got an 8 o'clock class, which I do not have because I major in personal happiness.
Right.
You would not be happy if you had an 8 o'clock class.
No. No.
That'd defeat the point of the major.
I can't even make it to hyper, and I want to go to hyper.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is doable. Whether it's the right thing for you to do, what I tell everyone is school comes first. And if this is going to jeopardize school, don't do it. If talking to me jeopardizes school, don't do it. And I'll cry, but
Okay. Sounds good.
anyway, the campsite becomes available at 4 o'clock,
Okay.
and I will probably be there at 5 o'clock. And I am no longer capable of doing anything but sitting and watching other people do stuff.
Nice.
So
That's all right.
There's 2 tents that have to be set up. There's other stuff that has to be set up. And so I'm very dependent on other people to do that.
Okay.
And that includes tearing down the next morning, but we normally are out by 7:30.
Okay.
And sometimes earlier than that.
Yeah.
There will be s'mores. There will be I don't like campfires, big campfires.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
So
love camp.
I bought some of these smokeless, and they work pretty good. So we're going to I've got 2 of them,
Nice.
and so we're going to do s'mores, the marshmallows over that.
Right.
So you won't, hopefully, go away smelling smoky,
Yeah.
which is a problem with the others.
Right.
It has electricity, so I've got heaters for both tents. So if it gets real cold at night, which it's not, I mean, it's going to be cool,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be like we've been experiencing this month. Anyway, it's an option.
Okay.
We can have as many people as want to come out to just visit, but we're restricted to 8 people for camping overnight.
Gotcha.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, cool.
Kelsey, whose name is really Casey,
Yes.
I'm. Do you know Samantha Holt?
I don't think so. no.
Okay. Anyway, she has a boyfriend, and I got his name confused. So now he has had to go through the process of going down to the courthouse and changing his name.
So he can fit what you're calling him?
That's right. And Casey's going to have to do that very same thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'll have to let her know. I'll show her the clip of you saying that. No, I'm just kidding.
Rat.
I do have, it's change the subject, but before we have to get out of here, I do have like a question that I'm really passionate about asking people.
Okay.
What is the gospel?
What is the gospel?
Yeah, what is the gospel?
The formal definition is good news.
Okay. No, I mean, but like, what is the gospel? If you were to explain the gospel to somebody, what would it be?
The good news. It's from a Christian standpoint, it would be the information that helps you live a wonderful life. Is that a good enough definition?
What's the Richard definition?
Yeah, what's the Richard definition of the gospel?
My definition of the gospel is it's something that is helpful to other people, but not me.
Okay.
Am I spiritual? I hope I am. But do I believe in a God? No. Did I at one time? Absolutely. I have had, this may come as a surprise, but I've had 2 occasions where I was very convinced that I heard a voice. One I could relate very closely to Paul. And yet I put all that behind me. And in fact, in the one that relates to Paul, it said, if you reject that, this, you are going to hell. So,
Interesting.
it's pretty dramatic
Mm-hmm.
change that I made.
Do you mind if I like share what the gospel is? Like completely?
I mean, no, I wouldn't mind.
Okay. Because this is like something I'm very like passionate about, and
Okay.
it's something back to my like prior point about me like not being inclined to say like go out and be like I'm Baptist, I'm Methodist. Like the church as an institution does a very bad job of explaining what the gospel is, right? Because they're
Okay.
always like, follow the gospel is truth, yada yada yada. But I've gone up to people on campus and just said, tell me what the gospel is. What is it? And they don't know. They
Yep.
don't know. They can't give me an answer. And the gospel is in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? He doesn't tell us how he did it. Science, right? That's why people started studying science in the first place, is to figure out how God did what he did.
Yep.
God created humans, and he gave them,
By evolution or by actual?
he just created it.
Okay.
God created human beings, right?
So it was not by evolution.
He totally
He
could have
could've.
used evolution.
He could have.
as the
That
means,
that's
Okay.
that's why I say that I don't think that the Bible contradicts science. I think that they're all intertwined connectedly, and there's just an answer that we can't see. And I don't think that we'll ever find the answer that we're looking for. But anyways, creates human beings, and gives them free will, right? Because
Yeah.
like Caleb was kind of saying, if you program a robot to love you, does the robot really love you? Or is it just doing what it is commanded to do, right?
It does not have a mind. It is all strictly mechanical.
Right. So if you take somebody's ability to say, no, I don't love you, then that's not really love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he gives us this opportunity. He says, okay, you can turn against me or you can stay with me, right? And what did we do? As human beings, as a society, by we, I mean human beings, right? God's creation. They turned against him. They said, I want to be my own God, right? The serpent, Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call it, said, if you eat this tree, you will be like God, and you'll live forever like God. You will be your own God, right? Sounds good to us, right? We want to be God. So they eat of this apple. And what does that do? It introduces sin, right?
Yep.
Because God created something, and when God creates something, that something is perfect. Because God created it, right? And God doesn't make mistakes. But that doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do this thing, introduces sin into our life. We are no longer perfect anymore. And God, the union that we shared with God, right? When it talks about the Garden of Eden, us walking right beside God, right? This union, whether you want to see the Garden of Eden as literal or a metaphor for very close union with God, I don't take it as you will, right? Go as the Lord directs you. But whether or not there was a union there, it was a side-by-side union. But because of that sin, there's a split because God is perfect and we are no longer perfect. So there's a gap there, right? And so the gospel is, how do we get back to that? How do we close that gap? How do we get rid of that, right? Because we messed up. We created this sin, right? And so in the Old Testament, you see people sacrificing animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see the concept of a perfect lamb. Are you familiar with that? This like lamb without blemishes, right?
Right.
The theory behind that is that you would take your sin, you would put it on this lamb, you'd kill the lamb, and that would be your sacrifice to God. And you kill the lamb, it kills your sin, right? And God accepts that as an offering. But then you just wake up the next morning, you do something else, right? Because we're humans and we consistently mess up. We consistently live imperfectly. Because the original sin was not the only sin, right? It just meant it opened our eyes to all of the sinful opportunities of the world. And we take those as often as we can do them, right? And even from a non-religious perspective, everyone can admit that, like, they mess up, right? For someone to say that they're perfect is a very bold claim.
Mm-hmm.
But
if I was, are we talking about Adam and Eve, or are we talking about us saying that we're perfect?
talking about us saying that we're perfect. Yeah. So you have that sacrificing the animals to get rid of this sin, but then they wake up the next day and sin again. We still have this gap, right? It's a temporary fix to an eternal problem. So the true gospel is that God loved us so much that he did not want that gap to have to exist anymore.
That he gave his only begotten Son.
Right. He gave his only begotten Son, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, to come down. And how do you get rid of an eternal sin?
Through an
Eternal sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? What is the only eternal sacrifice? God himself. So God comes down as an eternal being, dies on the cross as an eternal sacrifice. Just as the lamb absorbed the sin of the person that was putting it, Christ absorbed all of humanity's sin and died with it, eliminating the gap that is between God and us. That doesn't mean that we do not sin. It doesn't mean that we are imperfect, because we still sinned, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God's wrath has been fulfilled through that. That's where you get the Christianity is. I was talking about this with a buddy of mine. It's a really interesting contradiction between justice and mercy, because justice is giving somebody what they deserve, and mercy is not getting what you deserve. So the two contradict each other, like, from a fundamental level. But God is both just and merciful because he gives us mercy. We don't get the separation from God that we deserve to have. But it's not because he was just like, oh, you messed up, that's okay, that's fine. It's because somebody came and paid the price, right? Like in a courtroom, if the judge says, let's say somebody steals something, right? Go to the courtroom. Hey, you stole this? Death penalty. Is that just? The guy broke the law. He's suffering the consequence of breaking that law. That's just. It's justice. But was it merciful? No, it wasn't merciful, because you gave the guy exactly what he deserved, right?
Yep.
It goes the opposite way too. If you steal something and the judge says, nah, you're good. That's merciful, but it's not just. So God said, you get the death penalty, but then he took his robes off and walked down and said, okay, but you take me instead. So somebody paid the penalty. It just wasn't us. And so that's what the gospel is really that we created a gap between us and God himself repaired the gap. But yeah, that's what it is. I'm very, very passionate about it.
Yeah, and I would be too in your situation. Yeah. No, that's not the way I should have said that.
It's okay.
Because that comes across as, yeah, I'm a pretty bad guy. I need that. And that was not what I was
Well, I mean, we're all bad people.
Yeah. From a Christian perspective, that all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you step back and step out,
mm-hmm.
it no longer makes sense.
Right.
Matthew 5:48 says, be perfect. Even, I think it says, even as I am perfect.
I can check for you.
Yeah.
You said Matthew 5:48.
Yeah, 5:48. This thing is amazing.
Telephones?
Yeah.
I have two really good friends, Wikipedia and Google. They tell me all kinds of stuff almost instantly,
mm-hmm.
including I don't have to remember 5:48 anymore because I can do it here.
Right.
When I was your age, I couldn't do that.
Do you want to read it? Like, do you know what he's talking about?
Matthew 5:48.
The love your enemies, like the whole.
Oh, okay. Matthew 5.
I hope I'm saying the
Oh,
right.
love your enemies. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and read Matthew 5:43 through 48.
Yeah.
You have heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who's in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? Like we were talking about the tax collectors. This is a little jab at the tax collectors. And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
So what I draw from that is like, I mean, we are called to be perfect because we were created perfect, you know? But because of sin, like Grant was saying, like, I can try by my own work to be perfect, and I can't be unless I rely on Christ.
Yeah.
For that, you know?
And that's what I used to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say this, it's not saying I want to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say how much I appreciate that we've been able to have this conversation,
Yeah.
and we can continue if you like.
For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
I think we are running.
Yeah.
I think 2.5 hours ish.
Yeah, this one's long, but I mean we were having a good conversation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like you were sharing, we were sharing, like, but like my perspective on like the science and the gospel and stuff, right? Is are you familiar with Occam's razor?
Of what?
Occam's razor. It's a I might be getting this wrong, but it's a theological.
what that is.
It's a idea, right? A
Oh,
concept that the easiest explanation is obvious is the easiest explanation is most likely the correct one, right? And so I think of science as this road that we will eternally travel down looking for answers, and the only true answer that we're ever going to get is that there is a God, right? Because because things don't come from nothing.
Yeah, and the God of the gaps.
The God of the gaps.
And going back to what we were talking about way back then, is that religion was has developed as an explanation of the unknown, and as science has progressed, some of that unknown is now known, and if it progresses to the point that all is known, then there's no longer a need for that God. Because there's been lots of things, for example, the Catholic Church was convinced that the Earth was the center of the universe.
Yep, they were.
And they were reluctant to change that, and they officially, I think they changed it only in the 20th century. There are other things like that science has come in and said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Evolution is another thing. In 1849, because I think it was Wallace that was about to present his evidence towards evolution, that Darwin came out with that book.
Right.
And that immediately sparked a pushback from religion. And then there was the Snopes trial.
Yep.
That really galvanized religion. I'm kind of impressed that you can accept the idea that there may have been human beings may have developed through evolution. Uh,
I don't believe in putting limits on God's power, because if I am truly confidently telling people that God is sovereign over all things, then why can't evolution be a mechanism he used to create?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
And
it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to preach something, then you should practice what you preach. You know?
yeah,
And so it's like, if God is sovereign and if God is all powerful, then why are we trying to definitely say, no, he didn't do that. He couldn't do that.
and I don't know how it is at Woodland, but and that's Woodland Baptist, right?
Woodland Heights Baptist Church.
Woodland Heights Baptist. Dale Wicker keeps emphasizing that God is in control.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what happens, he is in control.
Right.
And of course, I don't believe that, but I'm assuming that that's kind of the way that you think as well.
Yeah. I like to phrase it as human beings. There's this, somebody showed me this, it's a diagram of like a way of thinking that a philosopher came up with. It's like the dilemma. It's like, if God is all powerful, if he's all knowing, if he's all loving, and it's got all these circumstances that play out, and basically it limits you down to either the choice that, like, God is not all knowing, he's not all loving, or he's not all powerful. Like, one of the three. Somebody could pull it up. But I spent a lot of time looking at it, and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. It really does. It makes a lot of sense. And then I was like, wait a second. If God created the universe, right? If I'm going to tell people that God created the universe, then why should this diagram be able to tell me exactly how God did it? Or, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm trying to make is that human beings often try and convince ourselves that we're thinking outside the box. We're coming up with unorthodox solutions to problems. But what I'm saying is that reality is the box, and God resides outside of reality. So we can never fully comprehend. And that's why when you're talking about if the Word of God is the truth, then why is it that there's so many distinctions? I think it's because God put down in the Bible what we are capable of comprehending. But it's not everything, right? But it's what we need, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I've heard that approach as well. That we are spoon fed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess to some extent you could say that it's everything, but there's arguments either way. I could see arguments from both sides of it. But like you personally, I'm just very, very curious because you said you were religious. Did you ever have like a personal relationship with Christ? Like
I certainly felt like I did.
yeah, like when I was talking about like Christ dying for your sins.
Yes.
And repairing that gap between you and God.
Yep.
Did you ever like accept that? Like
yes.
For you personally?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And each Sunday, in the LDS Church, you have they call it the sacrament, but communion, and that's a chance to reestablish those vows every week.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I did.
Okay. Very, very interesting. I've never like you don't bump into a whole lot of like Mormons.
Not in Arkansas.
Right. If you go to Utah, it's a different story. But
Yep.
And Puerto Rico.
Really?
Did you know I used to live in Puerto Rico?
I'm trying to think. Again,
Probably, yeah.
this amazing steel trap.
Yeah.
That's
I used to live in Puerto Rico, and there were a lot of like people at LDS Church there.
I did not realize
because
that.
of the I'm not super familiar with it, but I know a little bit about it. But isn't like moving around like part of the mission? Like move around in order to serve at different places in order to get back to Salt Lake City, part of the mission? Or am I wrong with that?
You're right and you're wrong,
Okay.
depending on how you view it.
Yeah.
Yes, I moved several times, but I moved in Hawaii.
Mhm.
You know, I was on the Big Island. I was on Maui. I was on.
For mission purposes, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But I did not go from Hawaii to Mexico
Yeah,
to Puerto
yeah.
Rico.
Yeah.
So, and it's been 30 years since I was involved. So I don't know. I'm assuming that if I went on a mission to Puerto Rico, that's the only place I would go. I'd go to
Okay.
different places on the island,
Yeah.
but
That makes sense.
yeah.
That's why I think I was trying to say, but not in the right way. So
It's really interesting. What is the Mormon Church's perspective on Jesus?
On Jesus,
Yeah.
different than the Baptist,
That's what
but
I've heard.
very similar at the same time. He is the son of God. The Mormons teach that there was a pre-existence where we lived with God before we came to the earth.
Okay.
And Jesus was his son. Jesus was very unique. He was perfect. He was, and then because of that, he was the one that made the sacrifice to do two things. One, overcome physical death, and then the other is to provide the grace to help people come back to God.
Interesting.
So I think now you believe in the Holy Trinity, and they're three in one, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah. A very churchy term
Yeah,
that is not elaborated on very much.
Okay.
Another mistake by the church.
The Mormons believe that they are three separate individuals. That there's God the Father.
Right.
We are all begotten spiritually. We became spirits first as his children, and then we came down here. And from here we can go, if we've lived a good life and met the requirements, then we can go back. And heaven, the afterlife is much different in the LDS Church than it is in the Baptist Church, because there's three divisions. One, you will be with God. In the second one, you will be able to be with Jesus, but you're not going to be able to be with God. And then in the third one, you'll be able to be with the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, but not with Jesus and God.
Interesting.
And if you're in the first division, there's progress that's taking place. You are becoming like God. And you will then eventually get to the point that you can have your own worlds and be the God of those worlds.
Right. You will become your own God.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that's very interesting because that was the serpent's rationalization for why we should eat the apple in the first place.
To be like God.
To be your own God.
Yeah.
To be like
Yeah.
God. Very interesting.
So from that, do you expect to be able to return to God or be with God?
Yeah.
Okay. So was the serpent wrong?
Yes. Yeah.
in saying that you'd be able to go back to God.
Not in saying that we'd be able to go back to God, but saying that we would
Be our own God.
be our own God.
You'd be your own God.
Yes.
That's not what, that's like what was wrong.
And
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I believe that the serpent was very tricky in how he worded things.
Mhm.
He said, specifically, you will be like God. And as human beings, I believe any human being would take that as, oh, I'm going to be God,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So you could break that down and say, well, no. He said you're going to be like God, as in you will live forever. And, so in that sense, maybe he wasn't wrong. But he was preying on their flesh,
yeah.
in a sense, and using this trickery, right? And it even says, like, the serpent was the trickiest of all
Yeah.
God's creatures. Very interesting, though.
In Mormon theology, there were two plans that were proposed.
Mm-hmm.
One was by God, and Jesus defended it in saying that we were going to come to earth, we were going to go through experiences with no guarantee that would succeed,
Mm-hmm.
and but would have the opportunity to go back.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was Lucifer,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he could guarantee that we would come back, much like the serpent. And his plan was rejected.
Right.
But Lucifer was able to convince 1/3 of the spirit, children of God,
Mm-hmm.
that his plan was the best, and they were cast down to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if any of that compares to what you believe.
See, more as Mormons, they have the Book of Mormon, right?
Yes.
In addition to what are the opinions on the Holy
Yeah.
Bible? What is
Is it an addition or a replacement?
yeah.
Oh, it's additional.
Okay.
Okay. So they Mormons study the Bible and they take it as truth,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But then they also study. It's really fascinating to me because there are a lot of things in the Bible that contradict a lot of things that are in the Book of Mormon. And I mean, I have not read the Book of Mormon, so I want to preface that by saying that I'm not an expert in that, but just the things I've heard people talking about.
Okay.
You know?
As one that grew up in the Mormon Church,
Mm-hmm.
and experiencing
Mm-hmm.
that, there's lots of stuff that is talked about the Mormon Church that simply is not true,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and that's just human nature.
Right. Very interesting.
So I would take anything that is said by anyone about the Mormon Church
Mhm.
with a grain of salt.
That is something I would like to read, the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Just because it's like if I'm studying Scripture, but I'm saying that it's truth, it's like you shouldn't really be scared to read these other things and see what's
Yeah.
going on in them.
Yeah. The way that Mormons look at the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
they see it as from God,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not a perfect translation. So if you want to look up, look at the Google 13 articles of faith,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those 13 talk about the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They consider the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it's translated correctly, and they feel like that there are some errors, but overall,
Okay. So they don't believe that it's completely true.
they feel like there's errors.
Okay. Yeah.
Not major errors, I wouldn't think. Joseph Smith did go and correct
Mm-hmm.
some of the errors. There are also other books that the Mormons consider scripture.
Mm-hmm.
The Doctrine and Covenants is a book that is essentially revelations given to Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The
and
golden
then
tablets. The golden tablets and stuff.
no, that's the Book of Mormon.
That's the Book of Mormon.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, this is just revelations given to him dealing with circumstances that were there at the time and written down.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them aren't even revelations; they're just statements.
Right.
So that would cover the period of
Mm-hmm.
of maybe 20 years.
Right.
And then there's two others, and I'm amazed that anyone can be a Mormon, quite frankly. But I'm also just as amazed that anyone could be a Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
The Pearl of Great Price is one of them was supposed to have come from scrolls,
Mm-hmm.
ancient Egyptian scrolls,
Mm-hmm.
and they deal with Abraham. And at that time, there was no, they hadn't, well, they were just in the process of learning how to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphics, but it hadn't reached Joseph Smith. Anyway, in 1967, one of those scrolls showed up in a museum, and it was missing some parts when he had it, and so he had copied it and then filled in missing parts that turned out to be completely wrong. And it turned out the scroll was nothing more than it was a burial scroll that was directing people how they should progress after they die.
Right.
That had nothing to do with Abraham.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things that I had issues with. But I didn't find that out for a long time. Because I was over in Vietnam. I was just trying to stay alive.
Stay alive.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about Mormons,
Come to you're the guy.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I don't know it, I think I have a fairly good foundation in it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great deal of respect for the current leadership.
Mm-hmm.
The president of the Mormon Church, do you know anything about that at all?
No, I don't.
Okay. The church is governed by a first presidency.
Mm-hmm.
The president of that presidency is considered the prophet of the church and is entitled to direct revelation from God. The current president had his 100th birthday back in September.
Oh, wow.
Now, in the Mormon church, you don't go to a school, theology school, and in his case, he was a cardiologist, and a pretty good one, and one that was a pioneer in the heart transplant program. So, he was an exceptional student in college, in medicine. He did pioneering things in heart medicine. And then he was called by the president of the church to become an apostle. So you've got your first presidency that is normally 3 people. It can be more. And then you've got 12 apostles, just like during the Bible. And you move up by seniority, by time in service. So the current president is the president because he's been there longer than anyone else.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. And this really has nothing to do with anything. If you look up and see what churches are the wealthiest, the LDS Church is by far the wealthiest on that list. Does that make it a true church? Of course not.
Right.
In fact, I would say they
Poverty.
have a problem.
Back to poverty. I love conversations that circle back around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, we have been going on for
Yeah.
probably closer to 3 hours. So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of wrapped back around, to
Yeah,
that
we have.
with the
Yeah.
conversation. But
You may be able to get 15 minutes of worthwhile stuff.
maybe 20.
So does the Mormon Church ever teach that like God loves you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever believe that?
Yes.
Like truly that
Yeah.
God loved you?
Yeah.
Okay. What changed that?
The fact that I don't believe in God anymore.
But like what was the actual like the catalyst for that? Like what particular thing was like the thing that put you over the edge where you were like not doing it anymore?
Yeah. The fact that things just did not line up.
Okay.
And that goes for the Baptist Church and the Catholic Church. And things just don't line up from my perspective.
Just the human aspect in all of it.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fair. Humans are imperfect.
Yep.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what
And
happens.
that's not unique to Christianity. It is all religions, from my perspective, are man-made religions,
Right.
including Christianity. Did Jesus actually live? Yes. Did he die on the cross? Yes.
Yep.
Was he resurrected? Not from what history tells us. There's just no evidence. Did 500 people come out of the graves and show themselves to other people? There's no outside evidence that ever happened. And so I've tried to be as straightforward as possible.
No. That's what we want. We want people to like talk and tell us, because that's what I'm saying. If you like we've gone back and forth on this. If you just talk to people that you agree with wholeheartedly, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. There is another element involved, cognitive dissonance. Are you familiar with what that is?
I've heard of the
I
term.
think so, but just explain it for,
Okay.
just to have that so everyone knows.
Kind of like animus. I had seen that term just a few days ago. Could I recall it? Absolutely not. So what are we talking about?
Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive.
You're fine. You're just fine. We're all tired. We've been here for a while.
In 1957, there was a group that decided that Jesus was going to come and that he was going to take them. There was going to be kind of a rapture. And they would be the ones that would be saved. But they had to be in this one house. Well, this guy joined it just to see what happened. He didn't come.
Shocker.
Huh?
Shocker.
Yeah. But did that throw away their religious beliefs? Absolutely not. They just decided that they were not prepared, so Jesus didn't come. There's another group. I have a psychology book that has a picture of these people. They had decided that Jesus was going to come, and he was coming on a spaceship with the Hale-Bopp, not meteor, not asteroid,
A comet?
huh? Comet,
You're
yes.
talking about it? Was it like a cult thing
Yeah,
where they? Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump ahead of you.
Anyway, they firmly believed it.
Mhm.
And so they bought a telescope that so that they could see the spaceship that Jesus was in.
Yeah.
They couldn't find it.
Shocker.
It had to be the fault of the telescope.
Uh-huh.
So they took it back and
Okay.
said, this thing is not working.
So cognitive dissonance is you believe something, so you are going to distance yourself from anything that disproves that.
Absolutely. You've got
Okay.
two conflicting things going on, and you do not like conflict.
Right.
And so when they come together, you've got to resolve it in the favor of one or the other, or maybe even neither. But you just can't deal with the constant conflict. And out of that 1957 experience, the whole area in psychology called cognitive dissonance developed. And it's pretty much proven that if you got a belief over here that you believe very strongly in, it doesn't matter what information conflicts with it. This could be empirically proven.
Right.
For example, if I was in this group and I firmly believed that the earth was flat because the
Flat
Bible
earthers.
tells me so,
Uh-huh.
no amount of information that you give me that the earth is not flat is going to sway me. In
Right.
fact, it'll make me even stronger in my beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
And I think what that ties to is that, like, the difference between objectivity and subjectivity and truth, and how, I mean, like, I can say I love Reese's. Reese's are good. He can say he hates Reese's. Reese's are bad.
Reese's
and those
are actually pretty good.
Those are both true because it's a subjective truth, you know. But then when you look at the broader thing, like if I say,
In the broader thing, I get it. I'll take them, and you won't have it.
yeah, yes, exactly. But like if I have you like describe what my dad looks like to me, what does my dad look like?
He looks just like you, except you don't know if he's your real dad. You only know that your mother is your real mother.
I mean, what does he look like though visually?
Oh,
Like
he
describe
has two eyes. He
Yes.
has a nose.
Okay.
He has 5 fingers on each hand. He's got 2 ears.
Okay.
He is male
Yeah.
versus female.
Oh, yeah, that's good. So you have this picture of what my dad probably looks like to me, you know?
Yeah.
A human being.
But
Yeah.
I mean, if I were
A male human being.
and you believe that that's what my dad looks like, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But then I come back and say, hey, my dad is missing an arm and has a fake leg. And that's what I believe my dad to look like because I've actually experienced that and seen that. And unless I show you that, I mean, you can have that firm thought in your mind that my dad has 5 fingers, both legs, and all that. And that's true to you. That doesn't make it objectively true overall. Like, my dad is still like an amputee. He's not really. But, you know, it's like,
I can confirm he's not.
so taking it, and I mean, you probably already know this, what I'm explaining, but like with the cognitive dissonance or whatever, if like the Christian says that, you know, God is real, God created everything, yada, yada, yada. And then you look at, we'll just say Islam, you know, Islamic people. Allah is like the creator of all, Muhammad is his prophet, all this. Jesus didn't die. And like both of these like clashing truths, or like a simpler one would be like the atheist perspective, Christian's perspective. God is not real, God is real. And they both believe that, both have that cognitive dissonance. But they can't both be true objectively because either God can exist or God can't exist. For our subjective thought, we can have those different opinions and ideas, which everybody has their own. But they're not all like when placed against each other, one might be right, but they both can't because they contradict each other
Right,
as existing
right.
thoughts.
Let's say that one believes that God is blue and the other one says God is yellow.
Yeah.
So long as the blue associates with other people that says God is blue, there's not cognitive dissonance. Same with the yellow. It's only when their differing views become available. And so now the blue sees someone threatening his belief with the idea that he's really yellow. That's the cognitive dissonance. And let's say that God really is yellow. He's not going to accept it because he's got this strong belief.
And even if he doesn't accept it, they both have their firm beliefs that God is yellow, God is red. I mean, but God is blue, God is yellow.
Yeah.
But God could be red, and they could both be wrong, even though they think they're right and they live in that belief.
That's right. And
even
so,
though objectively God doesn't change based on their belief, because that's a self thing, and their own beliefs doesn't affect something that's not them.
That's right. And so long as they are focused only on their own beliefs, there's not cognitive dissonance. It's only when
To clash.
something different from your own belief
Right.
has to somehow be, that difference has to be resolved. And it normally is resolved in favor of the belief, no matter how true the other might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no words that like we can say that's gonna like save somebody, right? Like I can share the gospel with however many people I want, but at the end of the day, like if God doesn't move in their heart, like He's moved in my heart,
Yeah.
those words they're not gonna do anything because they're just words, right? It's just like the Bible, in and of itself, physically, is a book, with words written on it, but it's what resides inside the book that gives it power,
Yeah. And you can go inside that Bible, and I can pick out a few verses, and they will convince me that this is the truth. And someone else can pick out some others and say, no, that is not correct. This is the truth. And that's why we have bunches of denominations.
Yeah.
It's very...
But yeah, objectively, what one group says and what other group says, that doesn't change what actually is, And that's because man is faulty when relying on itself and their own power,
And that's with the assumption, you're making the assumption that the Bible is true, but they have a problem in accepting it as being true. When in fact it may not be true, but that's not something that you're even going to consider. And that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in.
I've considered it many times.
Okay.
Considered, yes.
I could point out some things, and it's supported by history and archaeology. And from my perspective, common sense, which is not common sense from your perspective. For example, the 7-day week. You assume that we have the 7-day week because of the creation. And on the seventh day,
No. I wouldn't say I assume that, no.
Okay.
Based on, but like you can like continue, like what you're saying.
Six days of creation, and on the seventh day,
you rest.
Yeah.
That is what the Bible says, but I wouldn't say like that's why we have our week now. I mean, illustrated from that.
Okay. So how did we develop a 7-day week with the Sabbath day?
Was that like an actual question?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it before. I just can't really remember it.
Okay. It was my assumption as a Mormon that the book of Genesis explained it all.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ten Commandments talk about 6 days you can work, and on the seventh you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my assumption. I've since learned that it probably, Egypt, for example, had a 10-day week.
Yeah.
Sumer was the one that came up with a 7-day week with a day of rest, and they called it the Sabbath. They didn't say it with the same pronunciation that I said it, but
Right. Right.
and then they were taken over by Babylon, and then Babylon took the elite of the Israelites and kept them for a generation, well, more than 70 years. And in that time, we can look at current events and see how this could happen. But anyway, the Israelites, it became part of their religion. And then the king of Syria overran Babylon, and he allowed the Israelites to go back. And so they took back with them a lot of as part of their religion, a lot of the things that they had adopted there in Babylon. And so most of the Bible was written after the captivity, or it was after they were captured. And so Genesis and all that. I was about to say, I think the Jews believe the same way, but I don't think that's true. So fact check everything I say.
Mm-hmm. So we need Dr. Spivey on the podcast.
Yeah.
So he can tell us exactly what the Jewish religion follows.
Yeah. And he's the one that taught me, and he may have taught you. But now I took Jewish scriptures from him. And you took
world religions.
Okay. And he still took you to the synagogue in Little Rock?
This is a long story, but I ended up there. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he took us down there too, but it was because it was part of Jewish scriptures. So you got a bonus.
Yep.
That's cool.
Anyway, all of that is why I am no longer religious.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
But from your perspective, it doesn't totally make sense in that why would I have left it in the first place?
Oh no, it makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, okay.
But and that's the problem I have.
Yeah.
Is that it makes sense.
Okay.
You know?
And I am happier than I've ever been in my life
That is awesome.
because of UCA.
Yeah. Well, it says it right there.
It
Personal
does.
happiness.
3 things that you have to deal with that I don't.
Yeah.
Tests, homework, and money.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're going to go down and get a credit card
Oh,
and
right.
start.
Yeah. Right after we leave, I'll go do it right now.
You can go online and do it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We probably should wrap up.
Yeah,
because
okay.
we've gotten, but we do really appreciate having you on here. If you have any like quick like any last words or advice you'd like to say to like anybody watching?
Become like me and go to UCA
Okay.
and be able to meet with not Kelsey, but Casey
Yes.
and Caleb and Grant.
Yep.
Yes. Well, cool.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, dude.
Yeah.
And
Really appreciate just hearing your perspective and your philosophies on life and whatnot.
Yeah.
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 I hope all of us can walk away from this conversation growing in some form or fashion.
Yeah. I'm just grateful I had the opportunity because we are social beings.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
for most of my life, I suffered from social anxiety disorder and was reclusive, and I feel liberated.
Mm-hmm.
And UCA has really helped me to do that.
Right.
nice. That's good.
And I'm not going to say another thing until we get to the door because I'm keeping you from exiting.
It is okay. We're not
That is
worried.
okay.
Yeah, we do appreciate everyone watching.
Absolutely.
Hope you guys have a blessed day, and I thank you for tuning
It's
in
great
to this
to meet
podcast.
you, Richard.
Same here.
Good to see you. I'll probably see you at the calf tomorrow, or probably this week, but
Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah.
But I'll
Yeah.
be there sometime.
Yeah.
All right.
But
That's a wrap.
you guys take care.